In this video, I'm going to talk about the interface or Playtest Parlor. The table is the central area of a session. It is where pieces, spaces, and annotations are placed, moved, and interacted with during play. So let's begin with navigating the table. To move around, click and drag on an empty area to pan. And if you drag directly on a piece, you'll move that piece. If you drag on the side of a deck, you'll move that. And if you hold shift click while dragging, you'll be able to make a selection box that allows you to pick up multiple items at once. And you can also use the arrow keys to nudge the camera depending on your keyboard settings. Now you know how to move, you can also zoom by using your mouse wheel up and down, or use the plus and minus keys on the minimap. And if you're on a touchscreen device, you can use a pinch and zoom and drag with one finger to pan. Now let's zoom out to talk about quick navigation tools. If you want to navigate to the center of the table, press T. And if you want to navigate to your player space, press M. You can also find these shortcuts on the minimap at the bottom left-hand corner. Now talking of the minimap, if you click anywhere on it, it'll send you to that location. And if you click and hold the white box, you can pan around that way. Now that we've finished navigating the table, let's talk about editing it. You can edit the table in two ways, either by clicking the edit button and clicking edit table in the action dock, which will open up the dialog box, or you can right click the table and click edit table to open it up that way too. Now within the table settings, there are 5 tabs: table, grid, players, preference, and privilege. Starting with the table tab, you can change the table width and the table height up to a maximum of 12,000 by 12,000, and there'll be a minimum table size you need based off your current settings. And you can also change the table color by clicking the swatch and moving it around, or selecting one of the default colors. Let's go with black. Now that our table is sorted, let's move on to grids. Grid is going to allow you to set a grid for the table, and there are 3 grid types: square, hex flat top, and hex pointy top. You can then choose if you want the pieces on your table to snap to this grid that you've made by toggling it on and off, and then you can choose to show the grid lines by toggling it on and off too. You can also change the grid size from 5mm to 200mm, which will set the spacing between the grid lines that you have on the table. Then we'll move on to players. We can first set the maximum amount of players in this game session, so let's say there's 4 players in the session. Then you can toggle player spaces and change its width and height. And now if I close the dialog box and press M, we can go directly to the player space to see what it would look like. This is incredibly useful for tableau building, resources, and other things too. Now let's return back to the players tab to talk about hands. We can enable hands on and off and set a max hand limit, and then we can toggle hand lanes on and off, and this is basically a visual representation of the hands below your play area. And the size can be from 10mm to 500mm. Now let's move on to the preference tab, starting with keyboard shortcuts. If you toggle this, it will spawn a keyboard shortcut bar at the bottom of the screen. There are 5 pages which you can navigate through clicking the arrows left and right, which is very useful for learning Playtest Parlor for the first time. You can also toggle the watch replay, which will show or hide the replay timeline panel, and then you can change your preferred measurements to millimeters, centimeters, or inches. Now let's look at all the keyboard bindings. Within this, you can change your mouse scroll zoom from medium to fast to slow, and then you can view all the available keyboard bindings that you have available to you. You can set them manually as you see fit, or you can scroll to the top, and if you played a game like Tabletop Simulator or ScreenTop.gg, you can set the keyboard bindings as you know them, so you get straight into the game. And finally, the last thing is if you click Discord voice, it'll open up a pop-up if you've dismissed it that allows you to join the Playtest Parlor Discord. With that done, we'll move on to privileges. This controls who can do what at the table. First, you can choose who has edit to the privilege access, and that'll be everyone, session starter, game owner, and collaborator. You can choose who can add, remove, and edit content on the table. Again, everyone, session starter, game owner, and collaborator. You can then choose who has the markup access. That allows you to draw on pieces. Again, you can set this to everyone, session starter, game owner, and collaborator. Then you can enable or disable peek action. This allows you to look at an upside down card on the table. You can set it to player, area, owner, everywhere, or just keep it disabled. And then you've got 3 toggleable actions. You can allow players to look at other players' hands. You can allow players to take tiles from their hands, and allow to take random tiles from their hands. All useful depending on the game that you have. And if you want to reset the settings within that tab, click reset to default. It won't change all of them, just a single one that you're in. And there we go. You now know everything to do with the table in Playtest Parlor. But for now, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial where we talk about the toolbar. And I'm Kenny, signing out for Playtest Parlor.